Take two. Hello, lovelies, and welcome back to my channel. Corey here. Welcome back to Wilder Woman. If you are new, hello, welcome. This is episode 1 of the rebooted Metaphysical Musings series. So if you want to know more about what this series is all about, go ahead to the previous video. I'll link it in the description below, which is just going to fill you in on the ins and outs. This is basically a series where we open up discussion about different topics that impact the witchy, pagan, new age, metaphysical, magical, esoteric communities, which we'll just call the spiritual community for short, okay? This is basically just a coffee chat, grab a coffee, tea, whatever beverage you'd like, and just sit down and let's have a chat about stuff, okay? So a couple of housekeeping rules or disclaimers, if you will, before we get started. Number 1, these are meant to be open discussions, so these are my own personal opinions. Nothing I say in these videos is gospel, okay? It's not fact. It's not the end-all be-all. This is just videos of me kicking off a conversation with you guys, sharing my thoughts with you, opinions, sometimes on things I haven't formed an opinion of yet. It's like we're sitting, here in my dining room / living room, open floor plan. Excuse the mess behind me. My dog just likes to grab the blankets and just pull them off the couch and annihilate everything. It is what it is. I adore him, so he's not going anywhere. And, we're just sitting here having a chat about stuff. Okay? So, again, opinion, not fact. All right? Disclaimer number 2. While I appreciate sass, we're not going to tolerate any hate in the comments. Just don't. Not here for it. If you're going to be hostile and aggressive to me or anybody else that's having a conversation in the comments, I'm just going to boot you. So don't even start. If you want to unload, and have a hissy fit about anything that I discuss in these videos, go and make a video on your own channel. Use a different outlet. Just not in this space. Okay? I reserve the right to delete and block whatever, whenever. It's my channel. So that's it. That's what's going to happen. All right? You have been warned. Now let's get into this video, okay? I originally had wanted to make a video just discussing the differences between witch and light worker. Okay, when I realized that 2 things here. There are just so many different definitions that I kind of wanted to make a bit of a broader video just discussing labels in general in our community. And then also something that I've been seeing become more prevalent as we get more engaged in social media and online life. There's always been a bit of gatekeeping in our communities. There's gatekeeping everywhere, right? But it's getting more aggressive from what I've seen. You may have a completely different experience, which awesome. But I've been seeing a lot of aggressive behavior and just wanted to kind of address that, at least in the beginning of this video. So, a couple things here. And again, just my thoughts, just my opinions. This is going to be kind of a ramble. So just, like I said, grab a cup of coffee, cup of tea, soda, water, whatever it is your preferred beverage of choice. Have a beer, a glass of wine, and just take this journey with me, okay? You can play this on in the background. You don't have to be watching the video while this occurs. Just having a conversation. Just sharing our thoughts and feelings, okay? And my first thoughts about this. I appreciate labels. I'm one of those folks that finds empowerment in labels. I think a lot of us come to the witchy, esoteric, spiritual, alternative spiritual communities because, in some ways we've felt on the fringe of society at large, okay? Witches in general have always been on the fringe of the resistance. And we've all kind of gravitated, maybe. And again, if you don't feel this way, that's absolutely okay. This is just kind of how I feel, where I was gravitated to witchcraft for two different reasons. One, because it feels natural. To me, witchcraft feels as natural as, anything else I do, writing, painting, going to work, breathing. It's just a part of life for me to do it as naturally as anything else. And in addition to that, the reclaiming of the word witch feels right. Felt empowering to step into that mantle for me. And like I said, there are a lot of folks that don't feel comfortable with labels, that shed labels. And, that's brilliant too. I do think if you were comfortable with labels at one time and now they feel very restrictive to you, maybe there's, something there in shadow to look at, which maybe something will open up for you in the course of this video. I hope so. However, labels aren't for everyone, and that's cool too. Those of us that feel empowered using labels, though, I think it's a benefit to have in the craft community. Plus, there are so many different variations of what we practice, what we believe, that having labels is beneficial to help, identify like-minded individuals, right? Oh, you're a green witch. I am too. Okay, let's talk about this. You're a starseed. Oh, great. I feel the same way. It allows us to find folks that we know immediately we're going to have a connection with, right? And build relationships. So as a foundational stone, I feel that they're beneficial. Where it starts to get a little hazy is when we start gatekeeping on the definitions of these labels. Obviously, we do want to understand most common uses of these terms within our communities because we don't want to go chatting as though we're an expert on one subject and then come to find out, 90% of the community uses this in a completely different way and I've got my audience confused. Know your audience, right? So that is helpful. And we should be aware in the context of how we are using labels and be able to speak on the definitions that we have for each of those words and terms. However, when we start getting very aggressive, like for example, one of the more controversial, in my opinion, terms that we have in the community or labels is Wiccan. Now, I love the Wiccan community. Oh my gosh. It's how I was introduced to craft. I think a lot of us were introduced that way if, you came into the community in the 90s, with the emergence of Teen Witch and Silver Raven Wolf's, series that kicked off with To Ride a Silver Broomstick, and Cunningham's books that came out in the 80s and early 90s. And if you know Witchbox as your original source or entry point into the craft community, you're a soul sister, soul brother. You are soul brother, sibling, soul sibling. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. You are a soul sibling of mine, because I'm definitely a 90s baby witch. That is how I entered into the community and took up the mantle of witch in 1999. So this is my 20th year under that banner, even though I've been practicing craft for a couple years longer. That's when I stepped into being empowered and using that term for myself and describing myself that way. And I'm sure you can tell by the look on my face that that's something that is very near and dear to my heart. The Wiccan community is always going to just have a special place in my heart. But what makes me sad is when I start to see a little bit of infighting. I feel that the Wiccan community at large often gets an unjustified bad rap. They're sometimes regarded by some traditional and hereditary witches who maybe come from, older traditions, practice craft differently, just is kind of the like the fringes of the fringe, the fringe of the witchcraft community. And that's a huge bummer. I think when we start to get to a point where we say, Wiccans aren't real witches, or even within the Wiccan community, oh, you're solitary, you weren't trained in a traditional coven, you're not really a Wiccan. When we start gatekeeping these labels that folks find empowering, and we don't have a real justifiable reason for it, we start alienating people. The infighting starts to tear us apart. And this is a community built up of not all, but a huge portion of folks that feel like outsiders. At least that's how I felt. And that's how a lot of folks in our community who I've personally talked to have said that they felt. Witchcraft embraces everyone, but most especially the folks on the outside, the folks that don't feel like they have a specific place in modern day society that they belong to. And that's, I guess, what makes me so bummed when I see this type of behavior, because those who have been alienated before should, in my opinion, have a lot more compassion for other people and not turn around then and alienate others. We're then exhibiting behavior that was most likely exhibited towards us, and that's never good, to perpetuate those kinds of cycles. Our job, having suffered that kind of I don't want to use the term injustice because I feel like that's too heavy, to have dealt with that kind of, again, just alienation and in some extreme cases, bullying, to then turn around and perpetuate that behavior to other people is just, not only does it give our community at large a very bad name, because people who are trying to come in are seeing this and going, wait a minute, that's the type of behavior that I was trying to leave behind. Why are you guys doing this too? You were supposed to be my safe zone. It's also not indicative of, it's not a good representation for any community. I'll just leave it at that. So the gatekeeping, I don't know how we're going to get it to stop. I don't think there's a way to get it to completely stop, but I think we need to be more vocal as a community at large of calling people out when we see it happen. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit of a story. In a witchy community that I am a part of, this happened several months ago. I was having a conversation with a girlfriend of mine who considers herself to be a green witch. Let me backtrack a little bit and talk, and at least let you guys know what my personal definitions are for witch. So for me, okay, a witch, and I have a very broad definition for this, but a very simple one. A witch is an individual who raises and directs energy to bring about change, okay? They raise and direct energy for a specific intent or purpose related to bringing about change within their lives, okay? So this could be a physical change, it could be an emotional change, a change, right? So again, very, very simple definition, but also very broad. It's not specific to calling out a type of witchcraft, because honestly, there are so many. It would take me half a day to record all of the traditions and go through explanations of different traditions that just I'm aware of witchcraft. And I'm not even aware of all of them. That would be a very small percentage. So there are an array, a large number of different traditions and types of witchcraft practice within each culture. My word, like I said, I don't think that anybody could name them all, to be honest with you. It would take a lifetime to even learn what they all are, okay? That's not even including studying any of them, just becoming aware of the varied forms of tradition. Because not just do we have a wide number in culture, it also varies between region and family. Oh. So craft in general, for me, has to have a very broad definition because it includes so many different types of practices. Okay? And as far as this conversation happened on Facebook in this group, my girlfriend, who is a green witch, and green witch, the most common definition of the term, is someone who practices craft but focuses mostly on nature. Okay, so they work with herbs, they work with trees, so various forms of plants, animals, and then the energies of nature as well. So heavy focus on the elements. It's a very broad spectrum, okay? But the focus is on working with the energies and magics of the natural world, okay? Now, she was using green witch interchangeably with the term head witch, okay? Now, that's more of a newer view of the term head witch. Head witch. What? Hedge witch. Can't speak today. My apologies. She was using those two terms interchangeably, green witch and hedge witch. And as I mentioned, the term hedge witch has a much older definition, okay, which is more broadly used, which is basically just to refer to a witch who straddles the hedge. Okay. And again, there's so many nuances within what that means, but you know, it's referring to the hedge between realms, okay, with the astral energetic realms and the physical, okay, and just straddling the two and focusing magic on that specifically. With regards to this conversation, we weren't using that definition. I was using her definition, which was related to green witch. Somebody else popped in because they were very offended and were upset that we were not using the old definition, that we were using head witch wrong. Head witch, hedge witch. What is my deal today? I'm sorry, you guys. It's Friday afternoon. I think my brain is just shutting down at this point. My apologies. I had physical therapy for my hand this morning. I just now have started walking using a cane. Okay, for those of you that aren't aware, I was in a car accident a few months ago. So I'm healing, but doing a lot of work, have a lot of appointments, got a lot of paperwork to fill out as well. And my brain power is going all to that. So apparently I didn't have much left in the tank for this video, but that's why we're drinking coffee. That's why we're drinking coffee today and not tea. Okay, so very, very offended that we weren't using the traditional meaning of hedge witch in this conversation. I tried to, you know, be a mediator, politely explain this was the definition we were using. Obviously, we were aware of the original definition of the term, but, you know, not meaning any offense to anybody. This was just how we were using it in this context of this conversation. And there are a lot of folks that use the term hedge witch to refer to someone who works with plant and nature-based magic. Whew, things got very heated, escalated. This individual, you know, claimed authority because they were a hereditary witch and yada, yada, yada. Won't go into too many more details about it, but it resulted within the individual getting booted from that group, which was kind of disheartening. It was sad because with that person being a hereditary witch, I'm sure there would have been a lot that they could have contributed in the way of a different perspective to that group, since that group is primarily eclectic, solitary practitioners. But anyway, it was a bummer. And with how much we live our lives online, I feel like these types of conversations escalate very quickly online, because if we were to have that conversation face to face, there's body language, there's facial expression, there's enunciation, you know, there's vocal inflection that would have been received in our conversation, you know, added to the context of how we would have interacted with each other. And I don't think it would have escalated to the point that it had as quickly as it had. So it's just a disappointment. And with the gatekeeping, as I mentioned, there's always going to be gatekeeping. It just, I hope that those of us that see it can call it out when we do in a respectful way. We don't want to be antagonistic. I don't know, maybe you want to be antagonistic. I don't know. But I don't want to be antagonistic, and I'm going to try and call it out whenever I can, as respectfully as I can, because, again, I think it hurts the community. A lot of folks were turned off by that interaction. I had folks messaging me afterwards who weren't even involved in the original conversation or what occurred afterwards, just to say, that made me feel uncomfortable. Like, I don't know where that came from or why this individual acted this way. And I said, you know what? It's a bummer. It happens. I'm sorry. And, you know, all my apologies. You saw a brief pause there because my robot vacuum decided to just shout at us. Anyway. I let them know, you know what, I'm sorry. Sometimes it happens in our community and it can be triggering. And the best we can do is have a civil conversation about it when something like that comes up. So that's my wish or my thought for the first half of this video, is just to put out there, labels empower folks. And not everybody. Backtrack that. A lot of us feel that labels are empowering. And for those of us that don't, or those of us that have really tight definitions around labels that, you know, we wrap our identities in, I think we just need to be a little bit more sensitive to each other and have a little bit more compassion for each other and how we use labels in our community. Shout it from the rooftop how you define a certain term or label or mantle. That's about all we can do. But to shut down another human being for their definition, for their way of using a label, I just don't think it's necessary, and I think that it does way more harm than good in our community. Another example, aesthetic witches. You know, I had a very set definition for a witch, right? Someone who actually practices craft, takes action. Someone's way of practicing craft may be different from ours. There are a lot of aesthetic witches out there. And what I mean by aesthetic witches is those who look the part, wear makeup, dress up, overtly look the part of the witch, right? But who don't sit in ritual, circle, don't practice spellcraft, don't practice craft the way it's practiced in the majority of traditions. Maybe putting on those clothes, the act of putting on those clothes and that makeup is craft to them. They're in essence, you know, when we look at my definition of raising and directing energy to affect change, they're transforming themselves. In a way, putting on that makeup, donning that, you know, if you want to refer to it as a witch costume, if you will, is an act of transformation. Who's to say that that's not glamour magic? So I don't see how an aesthetic witch who doesn't practice more traditional forms of craft, whether it be high magic, low magic, how are they any less a witch? If they want to refer to themselves as a witch and they look at their makeup routine, their wardrobe, okay, as ingredients to their spellcraft, I think that's absolutely valid. You may disagree. That's absolutely okay. But I think gatekeeping the term witch goes against the spirit of what the word carries. Again, just my opinion. Okay, guys? So as far as labels, one of the things that I'm trying to do right now is look at all of the different definitions that I have for witch, for pagan, for all of the labels that I give myself, right? And what I'm trying to do is challenge that viewpoint. Okay, well, where did that definition come from? Why am I clinging to this definition? Are there other definitions to this word? And if so, do I find any of them offensive? Do I find any of them upsetting? You know, maybe there's a shadow lesson there that I can explore, that I can use in my craft practice. And, or at the very least, journal about, think about, and see if I can't change my perspective on how I work with and I use that label. Okay? Because, like I said, for me, labels are empowering. I like to use them. I am a Virgo sun. I have to label everything. It's just how I roll, guys. I'm sorry. And it's something that I found empowerment in when I was younger. And I still hold to that. I am loud and proud about the labels that I use for myself, from witch to mom to ops analyst to tarot reader to comic book nerd, and just about everything else in between, because that gave me comfort at a time when I felt like the outcast, pushed to the fringes of my peer group growing up at just about every single age. A lot of my peers wanted to give me labels. And so I decided to take empowerment in those labels. I decided to give additional labels for myself that I would kind of, wrap around my shoulders like some sort of superhero cape, because that helped me get through very difficult times. I don't know if that story resonates with you, or you feel something similar, or if that story doesn't resonate at all and you're like, Corey, you crazy. That's fine too. I'm sure I am a little bit crazy. It's okay. But that was very empowering for me. And I know I keep using that word, but that's how I relate to labels. So if that's not how you relate, I don't know. Let me know in the comments how you feel about labels. Do you have any special ones for yourself? Are there any labels where the definition has changed for you over the years on how you view that label or how you use it to express yourself? Because I would be very interested to see how many of us use the same labels that we did 20 years ago, or, if they've drastically changed, or if our definitions for those labels have changed. Also, what are your experiences with gatekeeping and labels in our communities? Have you come across it a lot? Have you experienced something similar to the example that I gave you? Or are you like, nah, I just don't see it in our community? Maybe I've just had the horrible luck of constantly running into it. That's entirely possible. I don't know. But hearing your guys' thoughts is the main focus behind me recording these videos. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you've been seeing gatekeeping, how you feel about it, if you have any ideas on what we can do about it in our community, or if you feel like, no, we should be gatekeeping, whatever. Okay. And then let me know about your own personal definitions for labels. Do you use any? How do you feel about them? Do you not use them? Why you don't? And again, video responses, more than welcome. But please make sure that you link your video in the comments so that I can watch it, especially if I'm not subscribed to your channel. If I don't know that you have a channel, let me know. So that I can find your video and engage and share it with the community over here too. And if you just want to, plug something in the comments because you don't want to do a video, that's okay too. Happy to hear from you guys. Like I said, as long as it doesn't spew hate, more than welcome. That's exactly what these videos are for. And if you just kind of want to lurk in the comments, that's cool too. Not everyone is living out and proud, okay? A lot of us still have to stay, within the quote unquote broom closet, if you will, and have to just, guard that aspect of our lives because our friends and family or folks that we live with or folks that we work with just are not going to understand that aspect of ourselves. And that's perfectly okay. We don't need to share every aspect of our lives online. It's probably not even a healthy thing to do. But that's the main focus for this video. Like I said, let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you've got a video response, tag it below. Let me know what you think about the gatekeeping, how you view labels for yourself. And if you liked this episode, give the video a big thumbs up so that I know to keep going with this series. And make sure that you're subscribed so that you don't miss out on the next video. And also, if you guys don't have any opinions or thoughts on this video, at least pop down in the comments and let me know what topics you do want to see discussed. If you're like, Corey, labels, I don't care. But I want to know your thoughts on, different views on polytheism or anything else, really. What would you like to start a conversation on in our community? That's the point. So leave those ideas in the comments below so I can start working on the next few episodes for you. I already have a bunch of episode ideas written out, but I'm curious to know what you guys want to see in case I go in a completely different direction than the one you want me to go in. Okay? Because I may think, ooh, all of these topics over here are very interesting, conversation starters. And you guys might be thinking, nah, that's boring as hell. Which is okay. I'm not going to be offended. You guys just got to let me know, okay? And I'm not a mind reader. I might be psychic, but I'm not a mind reader. So you got to tell me what you want to see, okay? Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you more than I can say. And I can't wait to see you in the next video and next episode of Metaphysical Musings. But until then, lovelies, blessed